Okay, good day everyone. Good day students. For today we will be discussing the operations management. So basically this will be the introduction to operations management in relation to hospitality and travel industry. Okay, so let's start. Let's begin. So at the end of the lesson, students are expected to first discuss the scope and nature of operations management in business work setting and relate operations management in production of service in hospitality industry. So we're going to differentiate between what a manufacturing operation industries are from what we call hospitality and the tourism industry. Okay, so before that, let's have an operation system. So what is an operation system? An operation system converts inputs in order to provide outputs which are required by a specific customer. Basically, it converts physical resources, which are raw materials, into output, and the function of which is to satisfy the customer's wants and needs. So example of this one is to provide some utility for the customer. So one of the examples of converting an input to provide output would be any kind of physical or tangible items or materials, such as manufacturing of what we call television or any kind or forms of gadget. Okay, so in some of the organizations, the product is a physical good. So example of this physical good is or are the items which are found inside the hotel, such as you have physical good of the bed, okay, anything which you can actually touch from inside the comfort room or in the bathroom, okay, anything which you can actually touch inside the restaurants and in the lobby, so on and so forth. While in others, it is actually service. Example of this one would be hospitals. In the same way, of course, hotels provide also intangible service. So example of different kinds of services would be bus and taxi services. You have tailors, you have hospitals and builders. So these are the examples of an operating system wherein an operation is being delivered to produce or to provide what we call services. Okay, according to Everett Adam and Ronald Ebert, they actually define operating system as an operating system is a group of functions. It's a function of an organization. It's the part of an organization that produces the organization's physical goods and services. So it's a mixed function. So meaning to say, this summarizes the different functions of management being implemented inside an organization to produce physical goods and services, from planning down to what we call directing, staffing, so on and so forth. So to begin, as we have already discussed the different functions, so first we have what we call planning. So planning, as mentioned to you in the previous discussion, this is activities. These are activities that establish a course of action and guide future decision in terms of decision making, in terms of planning. So students, take note that planning should be guided with the mission, the vision, the objectives, the goal of the company. So it will be giving you specific direction on when and where you're going to. So for instance, you have to plan how the vision will be achieved. And basically, hospitality and tourism industries, the first mission, or the main or basic mission why their establishments exist, is that it's actually to give quality service, and the whole organization have to implement total quality management to implement such directives, okay, in terms of what we call planning. So the operations manager defines the objective for the operations, of course, such as the organization. You have the policies and procedures for achieving the objectives. Okay, so this actually includes clarifying the role and focus of operation in the organization for the overall strategy. And it involves product planning, facility designing, conversion process, and training of the employees on how to give excellent service. So you have also what we call organizing. When we talk about organizing, these are the activities that establishes a structure of tasks and authority. So I have already mentioned to you during the previous chapters or the previous discussions that organizing is not appointing but having this team or group of people which will be designated for a specific task or authority will be delivering specific kind of roles and responsibility. So an operation managers, so usually these are the different managers of let us say hotel. You have the rooms division manager, which compromises of housekeeping and front office. You have food and beverage director, who acts as the manager, front office manager, and the like. So they establish a structure of roles and the flow of information within the operations subsystem. So they determine the activities required to achieve the goals and assign authority and responsibility for carrying them out. So, as I've mentioned, it establishes a structure of tasks and authority. Okay, so next. Okay, wait. Yeah. So you have the next one, which is controlling. So, what is controlling? This are activities that assure that actual performance is in accordance with the plan needed in a specific kind of performance. So to ensure that the plans for the operations subsystems are being accomplished, the operations manager must exercise control by measuring actual outputs and comparing them to planned operation management, such as, for instance, you have controlling the costs of the food and beverage. So you have the quality of the service, and schedules are very important functions here. So in terms of controlling, you have to monitor every activity, every movement of your employees. Okay, you have to control the quantity and quality. And at the same time, you have to evaluate the performances of your employees. You have to monitor the sales performance of your business establishment so that you could have a basis on how you're going to improve or develop your system or your operation. Okay, so you have what we call the behavior. So as being defined, operations managers are concerned with how their efforts to plan, organize, and affect the human behavior. So they also want to know how the behavior of the subordinates or the employees can affect the management's planning, organizing, and controlling actions. So their interests lie in the decision-making behavior. Okay, so as Ray Weil defines operating system as an operating system is a configuration of resources combined for the provision of goods and services. Now, when we talk about, when we actually talk about, okay, for a while, okay, when we talk about resources, we are referring to, first and foremost, you have manpower. Second one, you have the materials. Third one, you have the machine, of course. You have material, manpower, you have the machine. You have to make an involvement in terms of the money or the capital. So these are your resources. But take note that the greatest resource that an operation or what we call the company could ever have would be the manpower. Okay, so these are the combined effort of different resources to produce what we call services. So An operation is being defined in terms of the mission it serves for the organization. Take note of that, students. An operation is defined in terms of the mission it serves for organization, technology it employs, and the human and managerial processes it involves. So you have the word there, technology, which implies that there is actually a system under the resources. Okay, so technology is being used and implemented to make the work easier, faster, effective, and efficient, but it should be controlled by the manpower. Okay, next one. Operation in an organization can be categorized into manufacturing operations and service operations. So if you're going to compare the two, manufacturing operation, it's more about the tangible output. It's a conversion of what we call raw materials, okay, and then it has to process into manufacturing yield. So you have tangible output and you call it as a product. For example, you have wood as what we call the raw materials. So you have the wood, you have the nails, you have the hammer, you have what we call, what else, a screw, so on and so forth. So tangible output would be a chair, for example, or it could be a table or any form of wood which can be converted into a new form. So it's a manufacturing operation, okay? And then a product, whereas whereas the conversion process that includes service yield is what we call intangible output. Okay, so when we talk about intangible output, example of this would be the tourist destinations. You have what we call restaurant services. You have hotel reservation. Okay, you have what we call travel industries. So this is a form of deed or action or performance coming from service providers. So this is what we call an effort. So you could actually distinguish what a service is, which is an intangible output, from what we call manufacturing yield, which actually yield what we call an intangible output. Okay. So the next one, distinction between manufacturing operations and service operations. So as I have mentioned a while ago, the first one is tangible and intangible nature of output, which has been explained a while ago. Okay, and then you have what we call consumption of output. When we talk about consumption of output, when you are inside what we call service operation or service industry, consumption of output is very short. Since that, for example, you have what we call reserved and checked in a hotel for 24 hours, and then that's it. It already expired. So that's the different thing about consumption of output, wherein in terms of manufacturing operation, if you buy a specific gadget such as cell phone, then the cell phone is with you until it malfunction or it has been already broken. Okay, so unlike in the service operation, once being consumed, okay, so that's it, it already expired. Another example of this one is that when you purchase a ticket, for example, and then you traveled from Philippines to London, and after purchasing it and after riding inside the plane, then that's it, you have already consumed the experience. So you have the nature of work job. So when we say nature of work job, so sorry for that. Okay. Yes. So when we talk about nature of work, when we say service, it's actually 24 hours. Okay. There are also some of the manufacturing operations wherein they operate their production within 24 hours. But the nature of work is inside the service operation is actually, how would I say this one? It could be what we call, it required full effort of manpower, since that it render what we call service to our guests. Okay, so now you have what we call degree of customer contact. Of course, if you are in the manufacturing operation, it means to say that you make a specific tangible item without even talking to the customer, because once that you have already done with the production of the materials or production of an output, somebody will be taking care of what we call the sales, and somebody will be taking care of the promotion, somebody will be taking care about the selling. So unlike in the service operation, you sell the product, there is a frontliner, there is a service provider wherein you yourself personally have to sell the product, you have to explain the product, and the complaint would be directly being filled in by the frontliners. Unlike in the manufacturing, there is a specific department or a specific distribution team who will be handling the complaint itself. Okay, so the intimacy in terms of service operation is actually deep. Okay, so you have also customer participation in conversion, of course. For what reason? Because in terms of customer complaint, you get the feedback already directly from our guest in terms of the service operation, and then on the spot you have to what? You have to give already a solution to a specific problem. Okay, and then you have the measurement of performance. In terms of the service operation, of course, the measurement of performance is the deed. Of course, it's actually what we call the performance in terms of service. While in the manufacturing operation, the performance there will be the output of the product, wherein it should be in terms of the quantity of the product being produced and the quality of the product being produced. So next one, so you have the manufacturing, which is being characterized by tangible output. Okay, so you call it as a product. Output that customers consume over time. Jobs that use less labor and more equipment, little customer contact, no customer participation in conversion process in the production, and sophisticated method for measuring production activities and resource consumption as products are being made. So meaning to say, this is just the summary of what I have discussed in terms of differentiating between what a manufacturing firm or operation is from what we call the service operation. Okay, so next one. So you have the objective of operations management. So students, what is the main objective of operations management? Take note of this one. Objectives of operations management can be categorized into, you have the customer service and you have the resource utilization. Okay, so the first objective of operating system is the customer service to the satisfaction of the customer wants and needs. I repeat, the first objective of operating systems is the customer service to the satisfaction of customer wants and needs. So therefore, students, customer service is the key. It's the key objective of operations management. So I may say that operating system must provide something to the specification which can satisfy the customer in terms of the cost and the timing. Of course, when we talk about the cost, we are referring to the value, okay? The value in which the guest will be purchasing, and the timing. It's actually the delay or the delivery on time. So the primary objective can be satisfied by providing students right thing at the right price and at the right time. When we talk about right thing, it could be in the form of tangible and intangible items. And when we talk about the right price, it's the cost and the value. And when we talk about the time, this is what we actually refer to, what we call the timing itself. Okay, so you have what we call the resource utilization. So another major objective of operations system is to utilize resources for the satisfaction of the customers' wants effectively. So example of this would be customer service must be provided with the achievement of. Okay, so sorry, I have forgotten to include the right term for that. So customer service must be provided with the achievement of the satisfaction of the guest. Okay, so next one. So operations management, it's actually concerned with essentially with the utilization. So example of utilization would be obtaining maximum effect from resources or minimizing their loss, underutilization, or what we call the waste. Okay, so students, the extent of the utilization of the resources potential might be expressed in terms of the proportion of available time used or occupied, space utilization, level of activity, and others. So each measure indicates the extent to which the potential or the capacity of such resources is being utilized. So this is referred as the objective of resource utilization. Okay, so you have the customer service objective. So to provide agreed adequate levels of customer service, where in the end will lead to what we call customer satisfaction. So this is by providing goods or services with the right specification at the right cost at the right time. Okay, so I repeat, when we talk about right specification, it could be in the form of product or it could be in the form of service. And when we talk about right cost, it's the value on what you have paid for, it's the price, and you have the right time or what we call the timing. So the resource utilization objective, so to achieve adequate levels of resource utilization or what we call the productivity. Example of this one is to achieve agreed levels of utilization of materials, you have the machines, and you have the labor. Okay, so you have the sub-goals of operations subsystem. So it must be specified the following. Number one, product and service characteristics. So what are these? I don't know if you have already, but for sure you have already tackled this in your macro or micro hospitality and tourism industry, wherein products and services has been already characterized, such as, for example, it is tangible, party, intangible, wholly tangible, or wholly intangible. So you have inseparability, okay? The product is being consumed in a shorter time compared to any other kind of manufacturing products or output or what we call services. So inseparability in terms of what we call service. So these are what we call the product or service characteristics. So when we talk about the process characteristics, this is the standard operating procedure on how you're going to convert what we call raw materials to what we call an output. So an example of this product characteristics is the step-by-step procedure, for example, in making tangible items such as, for example, a bed or a chair, or it could be a computer or a laptop or cell phone, wherein a service operation, a process characteristic would be a standard operation in terms of what is the process of the proper way of serving, what is the proper way of making a standardized recipe, okay? So, of course, you have the product and service quality. Operation subsystem in terms of product and service quality, wherein it answers the question of how it is being delivered, and what should be the product itself, and what should be the service. So it actually questioned the style or the service quality of any action being given by service provider. Okay, so you have efficiency and you have effective employees relation and cost control of labor. So you have cost control of material. You have what we call cost control in terms of facility utilization. Okay, so you have the efficiency and effectiveness of employee relations, such as, for example, doing the right thing and doing the things right. Okay, so you have the cost control of labor, wherein how are you going to schedule this manpower? How are you going to have this what we call shiftings of employees in a 24-hour operation? So you have the cost control of materials in terms of utilization, in terms of what we call the inventory, okay, and then you have cost control in terms of facility utilization. So meaning to say how you're going to adopt a specific style or system on how you're going to make use of necessary facilities, such as, for example, equipment. You have the power, or you have what we call utilities, such as electricity, you have the gas, you have what we or fuel, okay, you have the water. Okay, so you have number 5, customer service. In terms of customer service, you have the schedule. So producing quantities to meet expected demand of the guest. Okay, so that's customer service. Meeting the required delivery date for goods or services, that is customer service. Okay, let's say for instance, how many minutes or number of hours does it take to have an online reservation in Cebu Pacific? Or how many minutes does it take for you to have an online reservation inside the hotel? Or how many minutes does it take for you to have a takeout? Okay, so that's part of what we call customer service. Okay, meeting the required delivery date for goods or services, or what we call producing quantities to meet expected demand. Okay, and then you have the adaptability for future survival, which means to say this is the continuity, or in tourism planning you call it as sustainability, and how you're going to sustain the project, or how you're going to sustain the what we call the operation. Okay, so students, I hope that you could learn or could understand what I am trying to discuss to you. Okay, so you have other considerations. What are the other considerations? So manufacture goods of a given or requested cost. So when we talk about this cost, this is a price. So example of this one is purchase price, or the cost of obtaining or acceptable specification of goods. So you have also what we call timing, the delivery, the delay from order or request to our receipt of goods. So you have the 3 composition. Okay, the first one, manufactured good, which is the good or services. So when we talk about the price, you have what we call the cost. And then you have the timing, delivery delay, you have the word timing. Okay, so you have the 3 components there. Okay, so another example is the transport management. So the transport management is what we call the product, or it could be the service. So what about this one? So you have the transport management of a given if of a given product or service. So for example, you're going to transport a specific kind of service. So what are you going to do? You have to take into consideration the cost of the movement. How are you going to transport or deliver this service? Okay, the timing, the requested or acceptable time of the delivery. So students, what I'm trying to say here is that number 1, duration or time to move. Okay, so you have the specification. Okay, you have number 2, wait or delay from requesting to its commencement. So these are some of the explanation on how you're going to deliver or to move a specific product or a specific service. So you have the duration and you have the timing. Okay, so you have also the supply goods of a given or requested item or cost. So you have again same sample or same example. So purchase the price or cost of obtaining acceptable specification goods. So you also have the timing, the delivery, the delay from order or request to receipt of goods. So ibig sabihin, students, it's when you're going to accept the delivered goods which has been actually requested. Okay, so you have the service treatment of a given or requested cost. So what is this cost again? This is what we call the price. Service treatment of a given requested cost. This is the product or the service wherein you have paid for. Okay, so the cost of the movement. Okay, so you have the timing, acceptable specification. So duration of the time required for the treatment. Okay, wait or delay from requesting treatment to its commencement, or what we call from the time of the operation itself. Okay, so for you to understand it better, when we talk about, for example, service treatment, if you are, for example, inside a clinic, okay, what is the time or duration on how duration of the patient to be treated? Okay, how about the wait or delay from requesting the treatment to its commencement? Okay, so students, that's the end of the presentation, and all of the discussion has been posted in your LMS, and there's one of the file which actually will explain all the things which are being presented on the PowerPoint presentation or in the video. Okay, so after this one, you have to answer a specific activity which has been also posted in the Moodle. Okay, thank you.